The Hazmat Responder RAD Kit, manufactured by Environmental Instruments Canada, is intended for first responders. This compact, lightweight kit contains monitoring equipment for external radiation, such as gamma rays, and for monitoring loose contamination for contamination control purposes. Let's look at the kit we put together for this project. Every kit contains a Samsung Galaxy S5 cell phone inside a protective case with shutter. You use that by itself to measure the high dose rates. Every kit contains a pancake contamination meter and a removable telescoping handle, perfect for contamination control. A general purpose gamma meter is included, and 20 of the kits contain an energy compensated gamma meter. We'll talk a bit more about the differences between these two instruments. These instruments could both be used for monitoring dose and establishing hot and cold zones at the incident scene. 8 of the kits contain our AM003 with the high sensitivity gamma probe, ideal for environmental monitoring. Also included are a number of accessories. GammaGuard, used during initial response, will identify radiation and provide personal protection for first responders. GammaGuard can be used as a high dose rate gamma meter as well as a personal dosimeter. First responders will be warned of dangerous radiation levels as GammaGuard interprets incoming data for the user. The patented mechanical shutter facilitates switching between radiation detection as well as photography modes. GammaGuard is rapidly deployable and provides a dosimetry solution in the event of a large-scale nuclear incident. It can also upload data automatically to a central database, thereby facilitating a coordinated incident response. Remember when we said that we wanted to be able to measure up to 1,000 millisieverts per hour? Or 1,000,000 microsieverts per hour? Well, that's not a problem here. The GammaGuard has been tested in exposure rates up to 300 millisieverts per hour, which corresponds to 300 million microsieverts per hour. On the other hand, this is not sensitive enough to do the hot zone, cold zone delineation, at least not in real time.
Make sure the lens is covered. Start the GammaGuard app. The battery covered warning will close the app in this mode. So let's just start it again. Phones issued as part of the BCIP program are already calibrated. All you need to do is open the app, select camera detector, select the screen you like, and start measure. It'll warn you that the phone will get hot and not to put it in your pocket. It'll take a while before the counts start coming in, or the frames start coming in. That'll tell you it's working. We'll use a radium dial watch as a check source. In camera mode, GammaGuard is not very sensitive. So we have the fairly weak radium dial watch as a source. So we have to put it really close to the camera. So we're actually using the back camera, but the radiation is going through the front of the phone to reach it. The dose rate shown is a 2-minute average, so it'll take 2 minutes for the reading to stabilize. If we had a stronger source, we wouldn't need to put the source right on the camera. We could measure it at a distance. The interpret screen. The interpret screen tells you how long you can work in the area before you exceed the threshold dose. So in this case, you'd have about 20 hours before you reach the public dose limit. The simple screen gives you a large display and a nice little speedometer type dial for the reading. Okay, let's have a look at our settings menu. And we'll go to the settings that are under the camera detector, not the external detector. And it asks you for a password. We'll just hit cancel. And that gets you to the normal settings, not the ones that can change the calibration on the phone. Let's change the levels at which the colored status bar changes. So the yellow warning level goes to 10 microsieverts an hour right now. And we'll just change that maybe so to get it to change. I'll make that 2. Red warning level. So now that changed this to red. Change the status bar to red. It also changes the level at which what's full scale of the speedometer dial. So we'll take this off. And it should take about 2 minutes now for the reading to go back to 0, because again we're using a 2-minute average. In the meantime, maybe we'll put this phone into background mode. So in that mode, we can do other things with the phone without the app being interrupted. So for example, we'll make a phone call. So I can answer the phone, whatever, and my app is still running in the background. We'll end it. And let's go to the detailed screen. It's still running, just went to 0. Now it didn't go to 0 because of the phone call, it went to 0 because I didn't have a source on there for 2 minutes. Another thing we can look at, we can check the power save mode. In that mode, the camera doesn't get hot, and you could put the phone in your pocket and you can have it on all the time to be alerted if you walk into something that you're not expecting. There it is. So we're still counting, but we're only counting much slower than before. That saves power, but it also reduces our sensitivity. So we really have to walk into something really interesting before this will respond. All the settings are persistent, so we're going to close our app. We're going to change those settings back before we close the app so that we have it in the same state as we found it next time we open it. Turn the background mode off. Again, remove the source to make sure we were actually counting radiation events and not some noise from the camera. And it stays No new counts are coming in, and the dose rate is going to go to 0 after 2 minutes. And after 2 minutes, the dose rate is 0 as expected. So we'll shut her down.
The CT77 is a general-purpose gamma meter and personal dosimeter. This compact, ergonomic meter will fit in the palm of your hand and is used when more sensitivity is required than the phone can provide. For example, this meter is suitable for determining cold and hot zones at the scene of an incident. The CT77 can be used on its own and may also be used with the phone to provide a rich user interface.
Okay, we'll turn this CT007S on by long pressing. It only responds after you release the button. So press about 3 seconds and release, and it should come on. The first screen shows the dose received since it's been turned on, and the second screen and the second line shows the average dose rate. Next screen is 2 dose rate screens. The short one will give you a faster response, and the long one is just a longer average, will be more accurate. So the short will be responding faster, and the long will eventually catch up with it. Next screen is the battery level, and then some information about the unit, its name, MAC address, and the firmware version. And then the next screen is a blank screen. That saves power, but the unit is still on. So it's still on. We're still taking measurements. So now we'll turn on the app. Get to the external detector, and it's not coming up in the detector scan, which probably means that it hasn't been paired yet, and our display all Bluetooth devices setting is off. So I go into my settings, I cancel out of my password screen because I don't need any secure settings for that, There's display all Bluetooth devices. I enable that, and now we see it, and we will connect to it. So we saw the external detector screen turn off, again to save some power, but the unit is still fully functioning, and it is now transmitting the radiation data to the phone. Again, I like the details screen. It gives me the most information. I see the counts as they come in. We have, again, the short dose rate. I think that's 6 seconds. The long dose rate is 30 seconds average. And then we got a dose at the bottom. We also have a battery indicator. The battery is 100% at this time. Sometimes the phone will say it's connected, but it's not really connected, and that usually is showing not getting any counts in and showing a battery of 0 is an indicator of that. So if we do see a valid battery reading, we know we're connected. The user interface is very, very similar to the camera. Our long dose rate here is 30 seconds. On the camera, it was 2-minute average. That's just because the external detector is much more sensitive, and we don't need to average for so long to get a good reading. So let me throw the source on, and again we can go to the interpret screen, and it will tell us at this dose rate you can be here for 35 hours or so before we would reach our 1 millisievert or 1,000 microsievert per year public dose limit. Again, that's the public dose limit. It's a very conservative number. Simple screen again. That's our little speedometer dial, which changes color if we go over, if the ranges switch. So we'll go from green to yellow as the scale had to change. Again, everything is very similar to the camera detector. We can run this in background mode so that we can make or receive phone calls and still have everything going. We can change the alarm levels. We can change the points at which the scales change. We can change the levels at which the status indicator switches from green to yellow to red. It's all done in the settings. Again, to get the settings, we go to the settings under the external detector, not the camera detector. And when it asks us for a password, we can just cancel out. If we entered the correct password, it would get us. Would allow us to change the calibration and things like that that you don't really want to change. The things that we do want to change can be changed without entering the correct password. I can turn off the beeps, for example. If they annoy me, turn them back on. So let me get rid of that. Oops, go to external detector. I can, if I go disconnect, it's still advertising, so it's there. I could reconnect at any time. So the instrument is still on, and I can use it in standalone mode. So after you disconnect from the phone, you want to make sure that you actually turn off the external detector so it doesn't run out of batteries. Again, to do that, press for anything longer than 2 seconds. So I usually count to 3 or 4 slowly, and then I see sleeping, and that turns the unit off. And then I can back out of here.
The CT007EC is very similar to the CT007S, except that the EC is energy compensated. This concept is explained in the following video.
The ECs and the S's, that's energy compensated, and the small ones are very similar. The S will over-respond to low energy gamma rays. So if we put a cesium source on the EC, for example, it'll eventually count up to about 5 microsieverts an hour, and give it a little bit of time, somewhere between 3 and 5 microsieverts an hour. That's depending on exactly where I place the source in relationship to the Geiger tube that's inside. And I get about the same reading when I put it on my S. It seems to be reading a little bit higher, which is probably because just to how I place the source in relationship to the Geiger tube. But they essentially read the same for cesium, which is a fairly high energy gamma ray. But if I'm just going to let the averages go back down to 0 here. The energy compensated one, and put a little smoke detector source, which is low energy radiation, directly over the Geiger tube, and we're not seeing any response to the smoke detector source on the EC. While if I put it on the S, we do get a significant response. So the EC is actually more accurate. The low energy coming off the smoke detector doesn't give anybody really a lot of dose. So it's a more accurate reading, but in an emergency situation, you still want to be able to see the low energy sources. So that's why I like the S is better for emergency situations, because it allows you to see all the radiation that's there, even though it might overestimate the low energy stuff a little bit. So that's why all the kits have one S unit, and not all of the kits have an EC. The EC is, like I said, is more if you need to accurately measure the dose rate, you use an energy compensated one. If you're not too worried about overestimating low energy stuff, then this one, the S is much more responsive. In terms of interface, they're exactly the same interface. They connect the same way to the phone. Everything is exactly the same between the two of them.
Prevent loose radioactive material from being tracked into unintended locations with the CT007P detector. This detector contains a pancake Geiger-Müller tube and comes with a portable telescoping handle, which makes assessing and investigating situations easy. This handy detector uses the same user interface as the other kit instruments.
The CT007P measures contamination. The window is quite fragile, so I like keeping it in a bag just for protection. You connect it the same way as all the other external detectors. Turn it on. And we'll turn our app on. And if you don't see it come up in the scan, then go into settings and make sure that display all Bluetooth devices is selected. Here here it is already, so I'm going to hit that. And we're on. The CT007P is used for measuring contamination. Sometimes you can leave the bag on, sometimes you have to take it off. So for example, if I put a little americium source here and bring the P to it, it doesn't respond much at all. That's because the americium is mainly an alpha emitter, and the alphas will get stopped by the plastic bag. So if I take the plastic bag off, I do get some response, at least more response. If I'm mainly dealing with beta gamma, so here we have just some no-salt salsa substitute. And we bring our pancake near it. Oh, I should have actually changed my units, because units of microsieverts an hour are not very appropriate for measuring contamination. So I'm going to go to my display units, and I'm just going to select counts. So again, my no salt here, it definitely responds without the bag, and even with the bag I should get some response, because that's mainly a beta gamma emitter, and most of that radiation should scoot right through the bag. So if I'm dealing with a beta gamma emitter, I can leave the bag on, and that will prevent contamination from getting in the fragile window here. So sometimes you'll know if a spill is beta gamma or pure alpha or sometimes somebody will tell you. If you don't know, just check with the bag on. If you do get a response from the source, then it's okay to leave the bag on. Yeah, you can check if you're getting a response from your alpha source or from your source. If you're not getting much of a response, then you need to take the bag off. To measure the contamination, and if you do get a response, then you leave the bag on. And the same deal to turn it off. Disconnect first and long press 1, 2, 3 until you're off. Yeah, I'm just going to quickly demonstrate how to put the stick on and use the thing remotely. Camera in. On. So we'll just, and we can let the vector out, so we don't have to bend over when we want to scan the floor.
The AM003 may be used with a variety of third-party probes. The Hazmat Responder Rad Kit comes with a very sensitive gamma probe. Use this sensitive probe and detector combo for environmental monitoring and cleanup evaluations, as a portal monitor, or with the GammaGuard app to log readings against time and GPS coordinates. The rechargeable battery may be recharged using a micro USB, and the AM003 uses the same user interface, GammaGuard, as the rest of the instruments in the Hazmat Responder Rad Kit. The following videos were produced by the Department of Energy and TAP.
The AM003 allows you to connect more specialized instruments to GammaGuard. Here we'll connect a big sodium iodide detector to it. This is a super sensitive instrument. It's way too sensitive for an emergency situation. You'd probably use it after you clean up everything to check that you really got every little trace amount of radiation. Again, it connects to GammaGuard the same way as all the other external detectors. And it's counting way too fast for the beeps to have any meaning. You can't hear the difference between fast and slow. So for that one, we'll just turn off the tones. And you just look at the display instead. For a one-handed operation, we can just use some rubber bands. To hold the AM onto the sodium iodide, and you can turn, for example, the screen back on. So we can scan things one-handedly, and you can read it from a distance too. The sodium iodide detector only detects gamma radiation, so we could put the whole assembly into a plastic bag to keep the contamination out. And then we can read the output on the phone, and we can use this as a probe without having to worry about contaminating it, because the plastic bag would keep the contamination out.